and we are actually going to go to Palestine right now, to Gaza, to join Eyad Amawi. He is a coordinator with the Gaza Relief Committee. He coordinates and helps to coordinate NGOs that are operating in the Gaza Strip. He recently published a really powerful op-ed piece in The Guardian titled, "I've seen the reality of the new Israel-backed aid," in quotes, for Gaza. It's nothing more than a deadly PR stunt. Eyad is a tireless advocate for the civilian population of Gaza, and we're also really honored that we're in regular touch with him and he's keeping us updated all the time. Eyad, my friend, thank you very much for joining us from Gaza.
You are welcome, my colleagues, Jeremy and Ryan. I hope you are well, and appreciated your interest with our humanitarian crisis still ongoing here.
Eyad, we said at the top of this live stream that according to local health authorities, more than 100 Palestinians have been killed in the past 8 days since this Gaza aid scam that Netanyahu and Trump foisted on the people of Gaza unfolded. Give us the latest situation on the ground right now.
Yeah, the latest situation here is worsening more and more. This morning, the Israeli forces forced expulsion for thousands and thousands of people in Khan Yunis, especially to the coastal area. It's shrinked. It's less than more 40 square kilometers. You can imagine thousands of people are crowded there without shelters, tents, foods, sweet waters, and they let them just in the street. It's an unbelievable situation here from eyewitnesses as my testimonies. I went there this morning, and I find my camps there. There's no shelters remains for the people after the repeated expulsions for them. You can imagine when the GHF announced for those hopeless people to go there and to bring or seek some foods without any directions, without any real and tangible changes in the amount of the foods that come into the Gaza, nothing really here happened. The situation here is really catastrophic, Jeremy. And until this moment, we lose more than 100 of martyrs, according to the GHF announcement. And we, until this moment, also lose more than 60 children from the famine. So the situation has become worse more and more by the ongoing time.
Can you describe what the process would be for people who are on the coast and who are told by the GHF, the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, that okay, now is the time that you can come to X place to receive these boxes of, and describe what's in the boxes. What is that process like for people?
Look, when we compare their announcement and their fake call for the people to go there and seek the foods, there is no comparison. When I achieve there is no database. They randomizing the distribution systems. They don't depend on the local employees. The people just achieve there with a huge amount of populations, seek foods, and they lose the control directly and let people do what they need to do. You can imagine this amount of population when they come to the one place to distribute the food. We expect directly the creative chaos. So we expect they need to do something like that to increase the suffering. When I went yesterday to the Netzarim access point, and I have witnesses from multiple of people there, they still waiting from the early morning hours to achieve the Netzarim access point. It's a military base there around the GHF centers. So it's not comparable to any NGOs or United Nations organization that will work in the green zone with the safety concerns that save their safety for our peoples and distribute under database systems. They normalize and with the fairness. So there is no comparison. In my thoughts, they need to create creative chaos to increase the suffering here by this unsystemized and randomizing the distribution also.
The Israelis responded to their own massacres of Palestinians, and many in Palestine, in Gaza, started referring to these massacres outside of the so-called aid sites as the Wititov massacres because of Steve Witkoff's blocking of a ceasefire deal after Hamas had agreed to it, and actually agreed to terms that said that Hamas would give up governance of the Gaza Strip, which is supposedly a key demand of both the Trump administration and Netanyahu. And what Israel did then was to release a video claiming that it depicted Hamas fighters shooting and killing Palestinians who were going to pick up flour. And there's a substantial amount of evidence to indicate that, in fact, the people that were doing the killing there, the shooting there, were part of a private gang, the Abu Shabaab gang, that is directly supported by Israel. And yet that narrative has stuck. And at a minimum, what's happening is people are saying, well, the people in Gaza who are really Hamas, they're saying that it was the Israelis that killed the starving Palestinians. But actually the good guys, the Americans and the Israelis, are saying, no, it's just like Hamas has been doing this all throughout the past 19 months. They're hoarding aid, they're stealing aid. And I don't know if you saw this, Eyad, but a few days ago, David Satterfield, who was the top humanitarian aid official under Joe Biden for the duration of this genocide when Biden was president, was asked on CNN about Hamas stealing aid, hoarding aid, and selling aid. And Satterfield himself, who is a very pro-Israel guy, said that he never saw any significant evidence whatsoever, nor did the Israelis provide the United States with any evidence whatsoever to back up the claim that Hamas was doing anything like that. So what is the reality on what is your understanding of the facts?
Yeah, look, this is very important questions from you, Jeremy. Look, the Americans, politicians, and the Israeli, they still announce the UN umbrella organization here working over the ground still lit the aids. The chaos that handmade by the Israeli, they kill all of the volunteers who is responsible for securing the convoy of the trucks and kill the blue police here, and they let the looters do what they need to do. After that, all of the community will lose the control over everything. So it's maybe I mentioned that before. They use the step-by-step maps to increase the suffering until the full collapsation. So it's not easy to distinguish that day by day. When they hit the four maybe huge buildings that tower with 100 civilians to kill one person, claiming that the Hamas exists in these buildings. As a humanitarian aids and as a paramedics here, when we went there to rescue who is remaining alive, we find nothing there militarized, nothing exists that threat Israel. So they use these illusions to comprehend and to clarify their ongoing killing for us and for our people here. So it's very easy to distinguish between the reality here over the ground and the illusion that they still made. So when we talk about the GHF organization, I mean it's a fake organization. All of our community and that mentioned a lot of times, they bring our peoples to the death trap. You can distinguish this. And after they lose the control, they let the troops and the tanks kill our peoples and prevent the paramedics to went there and to rescue the casualties from there. It's a horrible time. And from my point of view as a humanitarian coordinator here, we haven't time to still waiting this clarifications, and it's unbelievable and illogical to accept that.
You may or may not have seen the latest development here in the United States, which is that the Boston Consulting Group, which is the consulting firm that helped stand up to the extent that GHF can even be considered to have stood up. The consulting group that backed that firm has now withdrawn from supporting GHF, has cut its contract with them, and put the partner of the firm who brought the business in on leave. Essentially publicly disciplining the partner that connected Boston Consulting Group with this catastrophe. According to the Washington Post, which reported this, Boston Consulting Group was making the wheels turn for GHF, was involved in a lot of the negotiations with the contractors, setting prices. What is your understanding of what it means to have Boston Consulting Group withdraw from GHF, and how long can this quote unquote aid operation continue?
Yeah, it's very important. Before a couple of days, Israeli let maybe 80 trucks of flowers. It's a very little amount to come in without announcement, without any preparation with the UN organization, and they let them come in from the Karam Abu Salim cross point. All of the peoples, thousands of them, attack these trucks and get the flowers, as you maybe have seen for the video clips. The consultant company that leave the GHF, I mentioned that before while you mentioned that. It's a very important note. Over the ground, no tangible actions that can GHF do in this catastrophe. In my thoughts, the American GHF have reached a new consensus that without UN community, nothing will happen here, and the suffering will increase. So the resignation and the leaving of the GHF from a lot of people, so from the beginning until this moment, it's the bad indications that the failure will occur soon, more than they expected that. You can imagine when our people, I see that from my eyewitnesses, attack the GHF warehouses, the only warehouses in Rafah, and the Americans company, security company, see them with a huge amount of population. They surprised how we can deal with these people who is starving more than 90 days without food, without water. So the position of the GHF, I think they will leave soon the Gaza. Even thought what they announced on posting in their Facebook pages, they will continue supporting Gaza. It's a fake news. In our thoughts, without hundreds of distribution centers that related to the United Nations, nothing here real will happen. So I will refer and quote it to the Jeremy when he mentioned the Withdrew. Our peoples here, they write Withdrew massacres in their pages, and they comment over the GHF website. And we hope that the Americans politicians will change their opinion soon. We have here 2.5 million people still waiting the main meal to stay alive. So nothing to do more than sending a human appeal to the world. And the GHF must announce mustn't used by the Israeli as a tool to increase our suffering. And they're related to the Americans community. Hatred and the hateful speech will increase. I mean that our children here is emaciated, their bodies lose their weights rapidly, nothing to do for them in this moment. When I talk to you, and we are in the Nasser Hospital and the Al-Aqsa Hospital, a lot of bodies come amputated and burned, and they also suffered from the famine. So no time for us as a human here to wait the GHF to increase their support and to prepare their new warehouses until all of our people will die. So they must understand it's a responsibility for the international community to stop this fake and illusion to be implemented over us.
Yeah, Eyad, your connection is breaking up there a little bit. I'm going to ask you if you can just for one moment. Can you disconnect and reconnect? Oh, maybe it got better there. Let me just hear you though. Yeah. Why don't you just log off and then log back on for a moment, Eyad? You can go off and then come back.
3 minutes too, though.
Okay. Yeah. It's really important what he's saying, and I want to make sure that people hear this. And I also, we're this morning, Ryan, I was looking at a map of the forced displacement, some of the new orders that are coming down, and actually a friend of mine, her husband's family is from Khan Yunis, and she told me this morning that now they are being forcibly displaced and they're going to central Gaza, where Eyad is speaking to us from. But if you look at the latest Israeli forced displacement maps, it's clear that what is happening is that they're pushing people into a central area along the coast. You have this huge area, which is largely sand dunes of Al Mawasi, where a lot of people have been forced. And I think it bears repeating that when people are forced into Al Mawasi, that area also has been repeatedly bombed. Some of the footage that people may have seen of tents on fire, children burning alive, civilians just being slaughtered, that's from this area of Al Mawasi. But where Eyad is, and where our colleague Abu Bakr Abed was based in Deir al-Balah, was really the last city standing, so to speak, in the Gaza Strip. And you had secondarily, Khan Yunis had some infrastructure left. Well, in the past days here, we've seen a very intense bombing campaign unleashed on Khan Yunis. And what's clear is that the Israelis are trying to make it entirely unsurvivable to stay anywhere that Israel doesn't choose to allow it to stand. So, and then in the north, where most Palestinians are, there's just been mass carpet bombing that has taken place. It's also where some of the fiercest armed resistance against the Israelis has unfolded. There have been relatively high casualties among Israeli forces there, and that area is still being totally starved out. And our colleague Anas Al-Sharif from Al Jazeera is still there, is still posting videos, but it's a state of terror bombing, but it's beyond that. The aim of it seems to be now to really push everyone toward the sea and to entrap them along that coast. And Eyad, I know you only have a moment left, but I did want to ask you about this. It seems like the Israelis are now forcing the population. Deir al-Balah still, relatively speaking, has some infrastructure, unlike most other places in Gaza. But it does seem now like there is this push to drive people toward the sea and entrap them in essentially just like a half moon area in the center of Gaza, center South Gaza, right up against the sea.
Yeah, of course, I agree completely with you. From my witnesses here, our people, they force them to be expulged. Maybe we must distinguish between two idioms. Displacement have safe dignity for the people, but expulsion without any needs, without any things, you can go and walk in the street. Maybe you lose your children. I know a lot of our peoples in the north, they lose their children when they under the intensifying bombing, and they force them to leave their homes. This is horrible scenes, I know. But when we speak about a huge amount of population, they grabbed and tied under the half of moon, the western of the Gaza Strip. As engineering, from my work of the engineering association, there is no infrastructure that will meet those amount of people. The sewage water in the street and the infection diseases will spread rapidly, more than we expect, especially in the summer conditions here. And without any shelters, without any healthy conditions. And also you can distinguish what they need. They need to cleansing the lands. When they destroy completely the Noor al-Ka'bi Center for kidney dialysis, I can't recognize what they need, even though just the killing of people and force them to leave the Gaza. From my thoughts as a Palestinian here, we link to our roots here, rooted in our land. We will not leave, because nothing exists out of the Gaza more best from our land. But we need from the war to change the real politician opinion and put the sanction over the Israel to stop the genocide. As a human being, we didn't need more announcement and no more the media position. What we need here to more UN interventions, urgent interventions, with the humanitarian corridors under the protection of the international community to rescue our children, especially in the north of the Gaza. Anas al-Sharif talked to you maybe a lot of times, and I speak with my colleagues in the Gaza Relief Committee. We haven't any ability to rescue people from the thirsty also in the summer, today and yesterday. Unimaginable conditions that will increase the death cases, and from the also from the intensifying, and from the famine here. Everyone here from my families I know, they lose everything that can deal with these situations.
And
I speak a lot about the horrible times, but really we haven't time to stay waiting any change, and any tangible actions will happen in the next few hours. Our people here linked to the hope. When the Mr. Witkoff announced that he didn't accept, it's a matter between he and the Israel and Hamas. But as a human being here, we need the UN interventions directly with the humanitarian corridors under the protection of the UN agencies. Uh, Really, when you see the situation, I sending a human appeal. All of the journalists come to the Gaza and take the photos from your eyes. Don't depend on the local journalists. Okay, the Israeli killed most of them, and a lot of them under the clarification they related to the Hamas or militants. But you can see by your eyes. Come to the Gaza with a Dr. Victoria, who's come from Britain, and his residential surgeon in the Nasser. She received a long deal with a lot of casualties that come from the GHF base, military base, I care. And she have witnesses and testimonies that said no one of them are militants. Those civilians come with emaciated bodies. They need food just from here.
Eyad, I know you have to go in one moment. I just had one quick final question for you. That the Gaza Ministry of Health is saying that the total number of killed so far in last night's massacre has risen to 27. And so I'm curious. This is not the first as massacre, not even the second of this week related to aid distribution. Palestinians are sophisticated people. When they think about heading towards these distribution centers, knowing that so many massacres continue to happen there, what is the thought process like when you're deciding whether or not to go for the slim possibility of getting limited assistance, given also the possibility that the IDF will open fire?
This is important questions. Look, I mean, the security company that worked in the warehouses there, they face and they're surprised by the amount of people, and they let the Israeli deal with them because they haven't ability to distribute enough foods and enough amount of foods. Yesterday, if you noted something very important, they announced they distributed 5 million meals. It's not real. When you open the basket, you can find small bottles of the reserved foods. They account every piece in this basket for one family, and they multiple them as 5 million meals. It's not real. The one basket is enough for if one family would consist of 5 or 6 members for 3 days at maximum. So you can imagine you will repeat your deadly trip to the GHF again and again. So if you rescue yourself by the first time, you will not rescue yourself at the next trip. So they judge over of our peoples to be died by the shooting, by smoking, by the deadly trip for the long distance to go there. And they haven't any system really. They throw the boxes and the basket over the ground and let people come in and take, who would have a strong body, he can take one basket. The others, women and orphans and elderly people and who have suffering from the kidney dialysis, cannot reach there and get one basket food. So this is maybe some of the forest rules that they posted of ourselves, and we haven't any choice. Our people haven't choice. I know a lot of people here. They need to go more than one because he have 50 members of his families and children in the one tent that is still waiting one loaf of bread. So the annunciation repeated fake and illusion for us. I hope this is very clear for you, my colleagues, and we need your clarifications, and the humanity must support the reality over the ground and let the United Nations to do what they need to do. and they have experienced more than from the 50 years, 1948. I know my grandfather, he's still alive. He talked to me a lot. The United Nations have a good experience and have an database and well-known employee here, especially for the United and international community. They are still working with us, and they just need their trucks to come into the Gaza. Thank you very much.
All right, Eyad Amawi, we always keep you in our thoughts, and we're so grateful. And I really want people who are watching this to understand also that Eyad is around the clock, just working on trying to get facts out. He's also trying to get information to journalists from every news organization, and has spent so many days of the past more than 19 months of this Israeli genocide just pleading with people to document the story, to try to speak up. And we're really grateful for you, Eyad, and all of your work. Our love and our gratitude to you and your family.
Yeah, I am my gratitude, and I feel honored to be with you, Mr. Jeremy and Ryan. Really, Drop Site is making a tangible change in the awareness of the world. I know I followed you from the beginning of the war, and your articles and your efforts. Really, as a human being, we appreciated your attendance in our life. Go ahead. We will not give up. We will continue to stand, even though what's still happening here in Gaza.